Volkswagen's Golf is the family hatchback against which all others are judged, and never more so than in this lighter, larger, quieter and more efficient 7th generation guise, where it's cleverer and more usable than ever before. If you're shopping in this segment, you might be asking yourself why you should buy one, but perhaps the more pertinent question is whether there's really any reason why you shouldn't.
Volkswagen's modern-era people's car, the Golf family hatchback, has been bought by an awful lot of people. Launched back in 1974 to replace the iconic Beetle, it was the car that saved its company through 29 million sales and 6 generations that have brought us to this Mark 7 model. In reality, this is the first truly new Golf we've seen since just after the turn of the century, the previous 6th generation version having been merely a light reskin of the old Mark 5 model. And it arrives at a time when the Mark needs to step up its game. Volkswagen's in-house Skoda and Seat brands can offer Golf technology for less. The South Korean competition is improving, and more familiar mainstream family hatch rivals are offering premium quality and technology that, in the words of their marketeers, makes them more Golf-like. But, as Volkswagen argues, there's no substitute for the definitive article. And this, we're told, is exactly it. Stiffer, plusher, safer, smarter, more efficient and higher tech, its goals lie far beyond simply being better than a Focus or an Astra. This Mark 7 Golf aims to move above that, aspiring to appeal to buyers who might be considering compact hatches from the premium brands, marques like BMW, Audi or Mercedes, which gives you some idea of just how good Wolfsburg thinks this car is. Are they right? Let's find out. Effortlessly rapid. That's how I'd sum up this Golf to drive. Often you don't feel you're actually going that fast when you're out on the road with it, but such is its combination of stability, poise and control that you find journey times shrinking rapidly. The previous Mark 6 version was already a class leader in this respect, but that wasn't good enough for the folk at Wolfsburg. Adopting the all-new MQB platform that this car shares with its Seat Leon, Skoda Octavia and Audi A3 group stablemates, enabled them to create a substantially stiffer platform. And a stiffer platform is a less creaky one. Add in the redesigned engine and suspension mounts that are part of it, the extra attention to engine installation and the sound deadening acoustic windscreen, and you can begin to understand just why, after a drive in this car, taking a trip in an ordinary mainstream Focus class family hatch seems so noisy. Even the humblest diesel variant I have here, the 105 PS 1.6 litre TDI, which is Britain's best-selling Golf model, is significantly quieter than I remember its direct predecessor being. Otherwise, the engine's not that much different. The main development work on it went into creating an eco-conscious, super frugal Blue Motion variant that has slightly more power, 110 PS. Still, in either form, this power plant is acceptably rapid for its modest station in life. Rest to 62 miles an hour, occupying 10.7 seconds on the way to a top speed of 109 miles an hour as you zip through the 5-speed manual gearbox with 250 Newton meters of torque. It certainly seems to have a bit more about it than the lower order petrol variants can manage. I'd avoid the least powerful of these if I were you, the 85 PS 1.2 litre TSI, which doesn't really have enough to properly exercise this Volkswagen's lithe responses and shift along 1.2 tonnes of Golf. The 105 PS version of the 1.2 TSI is much better, improving the 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint time from 11.9 to 10.2 seconds and putting up the maximum speed from 111 to 119 miles an hour. Alternatively, there's a 1.4 litre TSI petrol option, which improves the sprint benchmark to 9.3 seconds and gives you a top speed of 126 miles an hour. All of this represents the most affordable segment of a Golf model lineup that has effectively been split into two by the engineering decision to adopt two completely different rear suspension setups across the range. Now, Mark 6 and Mark 5 Golfs were always distinguished, were always set apart by their sophisticated multi-link rear suspension setups that provided such an exemplary ride and handling balance. With this Mark 7 model, the Wolfsburg beam counters have decreed that only Golfs with over 120 PS under the bonnet can have it. Now, the perfectionist in me is disappointed by this, but the pragmatist can understand their point of view. After all, will the largely undemanding drivers who tend to choose lower order Golfs really notice that their cars ride with unsophisticated torsion beam suspension? Almost certainly not. If you were to get straight from a pokier Golf into a lower order one like this and drive over a particularly poor surface, you'd certainly notice a difference. And the same would be true if you tried both and threw them around on your favourite country road. But at least compensation for buyers of lower order Golf models is provided by the standard fitment right across the range of the XDS electronic differential lock system that was originally developed for the last generation Golf GTI hot hatch. Now, this works on the same principle as the torque vectoring system that you'll find on a rival Ford Focus, lightly braking the inside front wheel during sharp cornering and ensuring that all the power gets down onto the tarmac. And it works too, with sharp, incisive cornering, an impressive lack of body roll through the bend, that's also helped by the lighter body weight. All three make this car a remarkably quick cross-country tool if you need it to be. In other words, there's a basis here for a very enjoyable driver's car indeed, even if the electric power steering isn't quite as rich in feedback as that of a Focus. And you can develop things further with all manner of electronical trickery. Further up the range, beyond the entry S trim level, all models get what Volkswagen calls driver profile selection, essentially the same as Audi's Drive Select system, which is able to alter the engine management and throttle mapping settings to suit the type of driving that you're doing via 4 different modes: Eco, Normal, Sport and Individual. If you pay extra to add the ACC adaptive chassis control to the mix so that you can alter the suspension, then a 5th comfort mode is also added. In truth, you'll need one of the more pokey engines and hence the inclusive, more capable multi-link rear suspension setup that goes with them if you're to properly enjoy all of this dynamic potential to the full. Many British buyers will gravitate towards the 150 PS 2-litre TDI diesel, which uses an elastic 320 Newton meters of torque to get you from rest to 62 miles an hour in 8.6 seconds on the way to a top speed of 131 miles an hour. If that's not fast enough, then your dealer may well direct you towards the more performance-orientated GTD version, which has a 184 PS version of the same 2-litre TDI unit. Arguably a better bet, though, is a Golf variant that most customers probably won't even consider, but surely ought to: the petrol-powered 140 PS 1.4 TSI ACT, or Active Cylinder Technology model. Now, in recent times, mid-range pokey petrol-powered Golfs have always been high-tech. The previous range, for example, employed one that used a supercharger and a turbocharger at the same time. But here, the mid-range petrol model is cleverer still, employing ACT technology to disable 2 of the 4 cylinders at low to mid-range throttle speeds for extra economy. Plonk your right foot down though, and the performance statistics are pretty much the same as the 2-litre TDI. For real performance though, hot hatch fans will be drawn towards the Golf GTI, which this time round uses a 220 PS version of the 2-litre TSI petrol turbo with a 10 PS upgrade if you want it. It's a Golf. You don't need me to tell you that. And though on the 7th generation model virtually everything has changed, in many ways virtually nothing is different. The same thick rear C-pillar and near vertical tail, the same sharp crease above the flanks, the same horizontally barred grille. Look more closely though and important differences begin to emerge. In Mark 7 form, this car is 56mm longer and 13mm wider to give more interior space. And it's lower too to give a more dynamic stance. The front wheels have also been moved further forward to reduce the front overhang, to visually lengthen the V-shaped bonnet, and to apparently move the passenger compartment a little towards the rear. The result is a gym-toned look that's particularly nice at the side, with this C-pillar supposed to resemble the drawn string of a bow, giving this Golf a look of acceleration even when it's standing still. Overall then, a confident, assertive piece of design. But it's under the skin where the biggest changes have taken place, with the adoption of all new MQB or modular transverse matrix underpinnings that help shave 100 kilograms off the weight of this car and make it possible for the longer wheelbase that facilitates the larger cabin that Volkswagen was determined this 7th generation model should have. You notice it most here at the back, where rear legroom has increased by 15mm, despite the front seats being moved further back to suit taller drivers. Elbow and shoulder room are also improved, and even head height isn't bad, despite the reduction in overall roof height. Now, as usual in this class of car, 3 adults would be a bit squashed here, but a trio of kids will be quite happy. Out back, there's more space for luggage too. The cargo bay 30 litres bigger than before at 380 litres. That's 10% bigger than a Vauxhall Astra and 20% bigger than a Ford Focus. It's easier to use too, with probably the lowest sill loading height in the class, a wider hatch aperture, and a wider base to the dual height loading floor. Now, if you push the split folding rear backrest forward, you free up 1,270 litres, which again is one of the largest spaces in the class. And behind the thinner leather stitched steering wheel, well, nobody does it better than this. It isn't that it feels especially plush in here, though the quality of materials used is excellent, and a lot better incidentally in this Wolfsburg constructed Golf than in Volkswagen's similarly priced but Mexican built Jetta compact saloon. It's just that everything feels exactly of the right quality and absolutely fit for purpose. Like the way that the storage boxes are lined with carpet so that your keys don't scrape around on the move, or the really nice to the touch material used for the upper section of the dashboard, the central armrest that adjusts for length and 5 different stages of height, or the way that the gear lever has been positioned slightly upwards so that it sits more comfortably in your hand, and the option of a 2-zone climate control system that can even adjust itself according to the position of the sun. And you can make this cabin feel even nicer by specifying things like ambient lighting and a contrasting colour for the lower sections of the dash and the doors. For Golf regulars, the biggest change will be the adoption of this centrally placed 5.8-inch colour infotainment touchscreen that's standard across the range and works by swiping your finger across its surface as you would on a smartphone. Now, here, in its basic form, it displays things like audio functions, Bluetooth phone compatibility, and a multifunction trip computer. But further up the lineup, It can show you anything from 3D satellite navigation to speed limit signs as you pass them. Most mainstream Golf models will be sold in the £17,000 to £25,000 bracket, with the diesels that up to 85% of UK customers want, priced from around £20,000. There's a £655 premium to go from the 3-door to this 5-door body style that 90% of British customers choose. We're talking here of pricing and quality of product that subtly moves Volkswagen into a slightly more upmarket position. Let me explain. Whereas the old 6th generation Golf was the quality choice amongst Focus and Astra family hatches, this one is good enough to compete in slightly more exalted circles amongst the lower tier of premium badged compact hatches. So like, say, a Honda Civic or a Volvo V40, it's not quite up with Audi's A3 or the Mercedes A-Class in terms of driveway cred, but in all the ways that matter, it's every bit as good. I'm not going to spend too long then in confirming your suspicion that a Golf will cost you more than a Focus, an Astra or something similar. Of course it will. Expect to pay a premium of between £1,500 and £2,000 in most model-for-model comparisons, or maybe even slightly more if you're comparing against something South Korean like a Hyundai i30 or a Kia Ceed. You're being more realistic if you stack this Volkswagen up against a family hatch with more premium aspirations. Cars like Honda's Civic, Alfa Romeo's Giulietta and Volvo's V40, which cost about the same, and like this one will save you between £1,100 and £1,500 on what the market sees as true prestige badged compact executive hatchbacks, cars like the Mercedes A-Class, the BMW 1 Series, and the model that shares the same underpinnings as this Golf, Audi's A3. So, a fully credible stepping stone between Focus family hatch mundanity and full premium status in this size of car. If that sounds exactly what you're looking for, then you'll want to choose carefully between the wide range of turbocharged engines in the models on offer. Now, these really fall into two distinct categories. First, there are those with under 120 PS under the bonnet that get a less sophisticated torsion beam rear suspension setup. These include the entry-level 1.2 petrol TSI variants, developing either 85 or 105 PS, plus the 122 PS 1.4 litre petrol TSI, and the car I've been driving here, the 105 PS 1.6 TDI diesel, that's probably going to be the UK bestseller. It's an engine that's also offered with 110 PS if you go for the super frugal Blue Motion variant. Now, the second category of Golf ownership, the second tier if you like, includes more powerful models that get more sophisticated multi-link rear suspended underpinnings. Now, these include the remaining petrol units. First of all, the 140 PS 1.4 TSI ACT, that's active cylinder technology that deactivates 2 of the 4 cylinders under low throttle loads to save fuel. Above that sits the 2-litre TSI turbo petrol that's reserved for Golf GTI hot hatch buyers and offers either 220 or 230 PS. That leaves only the top diesel, the 2-litre TDI, developing 150 PS and available, if you want more performance, in 184 PS form in the performance-orientated GTD model. Whichever of these you choose, there's more standard equipment than previous Golfs have led us to expect. I was a little surprised that it's necessary to pay extra for things like carpet mats, an alarm and tinted glass, but otherwise every model in the range is pretty well specified, with semi-automatic air conditioning that also cools the glove box, a multifunction trip computer, a variable height boot floor, a hill holder clutch that stops you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, engine start-stop, and perhaps best of all, a colour touchscreen infotainment system via which you can access Bluetooth telephony and a decent quality 8-speaker CD stereo with a digital radio, an SD card reader and an aux-in socket. On all but entry-level models, there's the driver profile selection system that enables you to tweak the throttle mapping and the engine management settings via 4 different modes. Something you can add to by also specifying ACC adaptive chassis control that enables you to tweak the suspension setup too. And tempting options? Well, of course there are many, including a large glass panoramic roof, 14-way electrically adjustable massaging seats, satellite navigation that you can specify with voice activation, and a park assist system that can help you identify the tighter space, then automatically steer you into it. And my favourite option, well, it's a really natty device that enables your mobile phone's signal to be enhanced when fitted through the car's external aerial. Safety kit includes ISOFIX child seat fastenings, anti-whiplash head restraints, tyre pressure monitoring and 7 airbags, twin front, side and curtain bags, plus a driver's knee bag. There's also a clever automatic post-collision braking system, which automatically brakes the car down to 6 miles an hour after a collision. So if, say, someone hits you and you understandably go to pieces, then the car will automatically sort itself out. And it can do much more than that, but only if you avoid the entry-level trimmed versions. From SE trim upwards, it really will be difficult to have an accident in this Golf. From this point, you get a driver alert system which constantly monitors your reactions for drowsiness, and a pre-crash preventative occupant protection system that pre-tensions the seat belts and automatically closes the windows if the vehicle's electronic systems deem a crash to be inevitable. There's also an automatic distance control setup, essentially a cruise control that helps you automatically maintain a safe distance to the car in front on a highway. It uses a radar mounted in the top of the windscreen, the same radar that provides what Volkswagen call front assist and city emergency braking functions. Essentially here, the radar is constantly scanning the road ahead for potential collision hazards. If one is detected, the driver is alerted. If the driver doesn't respond or isn't able to, then the brakes will be applied autonomously to reduce the severity of any resulting accident. If you want to go further than that, then there's the option of further specifying a lane keeping assist system that stops dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway, and a high beam assist that automatically dips your headlights for you in the face of oncoming traffic at night. You probably don't need me to tell you that as well as being bigger and better equipped, this Golf has become lighter and more efficient. It kind of goes with the territory these days when launching a new car. Woe betide the manufacturer that does that with a model that's heavier than its predecessor. No such problems for this Mark 7 Golf. Thanks in part to the stiffer and cleverer MQB platform, it manages to shave 100 kilograms model for model over the curb weight of the previous version. Added to that are the benefits of Volkswagen's Blue Motion technology program, which across the range include brake energy recuperation, which helps reclaim energy that would otherwise be lost under braking, and an engine start-stop system that cuts that engine when you don't need it, stuck at the lights or waiting in traffic. Better aerodynamics also help this Golf's cause, and on versions with the driver profile selection system, you can opt for an eco setting, which angles all of the vehicle's systems, engine management, air conditioning and ancillaries towards maximum efficiency. And there have been significant efficiency savings in the engine department too. The early petrol engine options carried over from the previous Golf lineup are pretty familiar. 85 and 105 PS versions of the 1.2 litre petrol TSI, managing 57.6 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and around 113 grams per kilometre of CO2. If you go for the 122 PS petrol 1.4 litre TSI, you manage 53.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 123 grams per kilometre of CO2. If you step up though to the 105 PS 1.6 litre TDI diesel that I'm driving here, then things get a lot better. 74.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and just 99 grams per kilometre of CO2. In other words, if you've got this particular 1.6 TDI and you're collecting petrol station loyalty points, then that toaster that you're saving up for probably won't be yours till about 2019. And you'll do even better if you specify this 1.6 litre TDI engine in 110 PS Blue Motion form, in which guise it can record 88.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out a hybrid-like 85 grams per kilometre of CO2. Only the all-electric Blue E Motion Golf that you can ask your dealer about can really better that. If you want to choose the more powerful diesel, the 150 PS 2 litre TDI, then it returns very acceptable figures of 68.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 106 grams per kilometre of CO2. But before signing on the dotted line for one of those, as many business buyers will, I'd point out that there is a Golf variant that can produce fuel returns and CO2 returns that are very nearly as good and run on cheaper green pump fuel. The petrol-powered 1.4 TSI 140 PS ACT model. Now, ACT stands for Active Cylinder Technology, and what that essentially means is that this particular version can disable 2 of its 4 cylinders under light to medium throttle loads to preserve economy. And that means that it can achieve 58.9 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out a green 112 grams per kilometre of CO2. In fact, it can do better than that if you specify it with the creamy smooth DSG automatic transmission that now has a coasting function that is able to seamlessly deactivate the engine when you're cruising to save fuel. Even the Golf GTI, the 2 litre petrol turbo, manages 47.1 miles to the gallon and 140 grams per kilometre of CO2. To help you get somewhere near these quoted figures on an everyday basis, all Golfs feature a gear shift indicator on the dash, and there's also an eco function on the information display between the 2 instrument dials that gives you tips for economical driving. Downsides? Well, there aren't many. The older 6-speed DSG automatic gearbox that you have to have on pokier Golfs if you want auto transmission hits running cost figures harder than I would like. The much more modern 7-speeder DSG that you get on lower order Golfs is much better. Plus, other rivals better the 3-year, 60,000 mile warranty that Volkswagen provides. Other than that, there's not much to criticise. There's a choice of fixed or flexible servicing regimes depending on whether your annual mileage is short or long. Residual values, well, they're stronger than mainstream Focus or Astra family hatches, which you would expect, and stronger even than premium badged compact hatches like BMW's 1 Series, which you might not. Insurance groupings, meanwhile, range between 7 and 19 for mainstream variants. In the words of a previous Volkswagen Group chairman, the only mistake a Golf can really make is to stop being a Golf, a failing you could never level at this 7th generation model. All the reasons you might want to buy one are satisfied here. It looks like a Golf and functions with all the quality you'd expect from the Western Hemisphere's most recognised and most desired family hatch. This is what happens when all the resources of Europe's leading automaker are focused on creating the definitive expression of conventional family motoring. True, it could be more exciting in its more affordable forms, and you certainly wouldn't call it inexpensive in comparison with mainstream models from this segment. But then this is now good enough to be thought of as more than a mainstream car of this kind, as good in every meaningful respect as the premium badged compact hatches from the fancy brands that are much pricier. It is, in short, a Golf made good, which, if you're shopping in this sector, makes it very desirable indeed.